Hello and welcome to the Still Standing series. I'm your host, Coach Violet Coots, and I'm happy to have my special guest with me today, Gregory Rutledge, also known as G-Wiz. Uh, I'm a Christian life coach, equipping and empowering individuals to live in their true identity and be who God created them to be. I'd love for you to grab my free biblical affirmation cards so you can start renewing your mind today and find that freedom. And if you're feeling stuck in any area of your life, schedule a free breakthrough session with me. The link will be in the show descriptions. Hello, how are you?
I am absolutely fantastic. Even better now that I'm here. Thank you for asking.
Oh, good, good,
Just
good.
grateful to be here.
Oh, I'm glad and grateful you are here. So, just tell us, first of all, just tell us a little bit about you. Just, just give us a little introduction of who you are.
It's always such a hard question because who I am is so multi-layered. It's like, where do I start? So I guess I'll start with where I'm at and where I'm going.
Okay.
Um, I am a business consultant that helps coaches, content creators, and entrepreneurs who have stalled in their growth to pivot, grow, and scale their online business without the headache so that they can make more money and have more time to spend it with the people they actually want to spend it with. And
Okay.
the methods vary, right? It depends on where you are and where you want to be, but I bridge gaps, connect dots, and break silos. I bring people together, I connect dots that people can't see, and I break the silos because I'm a natural connector. It's what I do. I can't help myself. You put me in a room, especially a large room with a lot of people, I will not leave until all the people are gone or until I've talked to everyone.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I guess
Okay.
that puts in a nutshell. I've been known as the human icebreaker, networking king, a professional ray of sunshine. I love to connect with people, and I think a lot of that came from not having connection growing up. Uh,
Mm,
just kind of being the youngest of five, too young to be with my siblings, too old to be with their children, my nieces and nephews, and cousins, and um, a mom that was emotionally unavailable, but not because she couldn't be. It's just what she learned. Like she was doing the best with what she had.
yeah.
And, we just kind of tend to imitate and emulate what we grew up with, even if we didn't like it. And we either imitate or emulate it, or we swing the pendulum to the far other side of what we got. So I'm a product of that.
Okay. And I actually can relate. I'm the youngest of 10.
Wow.
And yeah, and there is 6 years difference between me and my sibling who's next to me in age. And so, I feel that same thing. They're out doing well, some of my siblings were actually already married when I was born and stuff. But so yeah, I kept that in between type thing.
Wow. Yeah, you do.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, so I know that there's a lot of things that you do, but tell me a little bit though about your, like your walk with God. Just kind of tell me a little bit, tell me or tell the audience a little bit about your walk with God.
I think my walk with God could strike people as weird or different, and that used to bother me. But I'm finding that everyone has their own unique walk with God, their own unique
Yeah,
way that they connect with the Creator. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think
right.
that's something I had to learn over the years. Like, I did not have God growing up. I didn't learn about God until I was 13, and a Jehovah's Witness knocked on the door, and my mom swore I was a heathen, and I needed to study with the witnesses. And so, um, she brought them in and made me study with them. And the way I learned the Bible was through rebellion. So I wanted to prove them wrong. I had never heard of the Bible. The only thing I knew about church or religion was that we were cheesters or people that went to church on Christmas and Easter. And that was only in New York with my grandma. And so the only thing I knew was that I couldn't drink Jesus's blood because it was real wine. And um, I needed to sit down and be quiet, and it was boring, and I didn't know anything about, like, no one taught me anything. God was someone to be afraid of that was gonna spank me or condemn me if I did something wrong, or that I was the devil, right? Like there was no teaching. And so everything that I learned felt like Why are you bringing this to me now? Like, I've lived my entire life just kind of in my head, creating things, like I created my reality based on what I saw around me or adapted to survive.
Yeah. Okay.
And so learning it at 13, which was also around the time I started using drugs to cope with all of the negative emotions I had, because that's all I knew to do was I got tired of of the way life was and having to clean up behind my mom and her friends when they drank. And so I drank and felt better than I did before and felt like I could do anything. And then that started that habit. And I had a habit for 10 years. But in that, because I was learning the Bible the way I was and I was rebelling, I was reading it more. And I was trying to prove them wrong. And, they're putting these one verse out there and I'm reading around the verse and trying to figure out the context. And well, if you're saying this, why are you starting here and not reading the whole verse? And it just became this thing where my mom heard me arguing with them, so she started studying. Then she became a Jehovah's Witness. Then in 97, she bought everyone all of the stuff they ever wanted. She spent like $20,000 for this Christmas. It was the best Christmas we'd ever had. All my siblings got the car they wanted. I got a Sega
Mm.
Genesis and a Nintendo 64 and all these games. And it was just like the ultimate. Everyone was at an all time like peak. And right at that peak, she goes, I hope you enjoy your last Christmas. And the reason I say last Christmas is because I'm going to be a Jehovah's Witness, so there'll be no more Christmas or birthdays. And you have your little brother Gregory to thank for it. And then she exits stage left, and everyone just dagger eyes at me, like, what did you do? I'm like, I didn't do that. Like, she made that decision on her own, but she just pushed it off on me. And that was traumatizing. And
Well, yeah.
so imagine the rebellion, right? Like, I don't want anything to do with God now because I
Mhm.
just ruined the whole family. And, I didn't make the decision to study with them. I didn't make the decision for her to study with them. And so there was this 6 years of forcing me to come to the Kingdom Hall and forcing me to dress up in a suit and knock on doors and all these things I didn't want to do and didn't understand. And at 19, I finally broke free and I told her, I said, you had 40 something years to decide what you were going to do and you had contrast so that you could make this decision. Let me make my own. And she finally stopped pushing. And, I started at Gateway Church well, first I did the spiritual path with 12-step programs. And I learned who God was in a way that they don't force God on you. They say higher power. And so I kept picking up the cues of, this stuff sounds vaguely familiar. Like I've heard it in the Bible somewhere before, right? So they're
Okay.
still teaching biblical principles, but they're teaching it through action. So a lot of the things they tell you to do in 12-step programs, call your sponsor every day, come to a meeting every day, practice these principles in all your affairs. And those principles are all rooted from the Bible. Like they're teaching you how to be love, how to be the church. And you don't see it. And a lot of people argue it because they've taken God's name out. But if you go deeper on your own and you have that personal relationship with your higher power, that's how you get it. And that's what happened is I developed a personal relationship with God, which was far greater than anything I could have ever gotten in any church. Because if I go to a church, I'm being spiritually spoon fed or I'm getting baby milk all the time, but I'm not actually doing anything for myself. And so getting that in me the way it was, I was never able to go off the deep end like a lot of addicts do. And so the entire time I was in the streets and doing those things and selling drugs, I actually ended up being the buzzkill because we'd be doing it and I'd be like, this is wrong, right? Like, we shouldn't be doing this. People are like, you're such a buzzkill. And when I was a drug dealer, it was like, I wanted to sell it, but if I saw that they were hurting, I was like, you don't need this. What you need is Jesus. And it's horrible for business, but it's great for the kingdom, right?
Right.
So I was saving more souls in the streets. And when you look back at like Jesus and how he lived his life, like it seems trivial today, tax collectors, prostitutes, lawyers, like those kind of people, but those weren't the kind of people that the church hung around with. Those were the people that were shunned. Those were the outcasts.
Right.
And that's where Jesus was. He was with the people who needed him the most, not the saints, not the people in the church. Jesus was compassionate, but he didn't compromise.
Yeah.
In the beginning, I was compassionate, but I also compromised. When I finally got baptized June 1st of 2014, that's when I noticed life changed. And that was actually, I don't like to tell this story because I feel like people can judge me for it, but at the same time, I can't tell any other story. So I was in bed with a woman I had no, I didn't have any business being in the position I was in. And I was telling her, this is wrong what we're doing. And she's like, geez, you're such a buzzkill. Have you even been baptized? And I was like, oh, no, I haven't, like ever. And I was like, maybe that's what's wrong. So Gateway was having this baptism on that weekend. And I was like, I'm going to go this weekend and get baptized, and then we'll never do this again. And she's like, great. And so I go that weekend and I get baptized. And it was true. Like that was the day my life turned around. I always heard about people getting baptized and their life changing, but I didn't believe it. And then it happened and I felt
Wow.
different and I felt renewed and I never did the things I did again. And it, like, I watched life change completely. And, um, it, in the 12-step program, when you pick up like your white key tag or your first chip, they say this is an outward sign of an inward commitment. And that's what baptism is. It's an outward sign of an
Right.
inward commitment. So a lot of things are parallel, and I think that's what's helped me to see the world the way I see it is I've gotten contrast my whole life. I see what not to do. I see what to do. I see it from all different perspectives, and God puts me in all different, like, in a situation and then in the opposite side of that situation, and then I see someone that's been in that situation that I wasn't in a part of it, or how it affects someone else, and I get to see something from so many different perspectives that I understand it fully.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's
It's,
amazing.
uh,
But
thank you.
you're talking about how with your story and being different, but it just also to me, it just helps us to remember, just how big God is,
Yeah,
and how he relates to each of us. And he has a plan and he has a path, and it's above our thinking. And it's, we don't understand it, but we we try to, and I'm afraid that unfortunately too much we bring him, we, at least in our minds, we can't make him different than he is, but I mean we put him in the box, we bring him down, and we minimize him.
yeah,
And by doing so, we are missing so much. We are
absolutely.
missing so much because he is just so big.
Yes,
And we can't comprehend him. But we bring it down to the point that, okay, I can comprehend this, and we leave him at that level or something. But
absolutely. Yeah,
wow.
we try to understand kingdom principles with human understanding or human comprehension. It's just you can't do it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. So after your baptism then, um, how do you feel like God has, because you talk about being able to connect people and guiding people. Now, do you feel like that has, after your change and after that baptism and everything, do you feel like that has helped you in how you connect people or anything?
I think it's a mix of just we moved a lot. I was a American Airlines brat. A lot of people are like, "How did you grow up in France?" Well, my mom worked for American Airlines, but the first thing they think of military brat. Well, I didn't have that luxury. It was more of my mom had flight benefits, and so growing up abroad and being in school in a French school, like I was in the American school of Paris, but because of my behavior, I got kicked out within 3 months. And so it was sink or swim. I had to learn French. There was no other alternative. There was no other school for me to go to. And so I sat next to this girl, Emily, for like the first 3 months, and she taught me all the bad words first. And then when she left, I understood the context because, she was British. She kind of helped bridge the gap for me at first. But then I started noticing those patterns at a really young age. Like I was 6 and I noticed that there's a lot of things that are kind of similar, but there's a lot of things that like I think having the contrast of growing up abroad, seeing other cultures, learning different languages, seeing how things are done over there, and then coming back here, I think that's why my brain started connecting like it did. And then um, the ability to connect came from a deep need to connect. Mom never held me like like with my kids and my ex-wife and my current wife and her kids. Like the kids get in the bed. They get hugs, they get kisses. Mom cooks for them. Those kind of things. Like um my mom never said I love you and never held me. And at first it felt like I was always seeking her validation and her love. Like I got it from everyone else. Everyone else loved me. Everyone else said those things, but the one person I was needing it from the most never said it. And that caused a lot of friction in my life. But when I stopped chasing that, and the thing that made me stop chasing it was she kept suggesting I cut my hair. This is like in mid 2000s, like 2008. And I finally cut my hair because I was literally hanging out in a barber shop to disprove what AA was saying. If you hang out in the barber shop long enough, you'll get a haircut. And I just wanted to test that theory. And so I hung out in the barber shop and I sat around watching people get their hair cut. And at some point, it felt like a good idea to cut my hair off. And I did.
Okay.
And then I put a beanie on and I was in my room. I was living with my mom, going through a divorce. And she comes in finally. I've been waiting this whole time to show her. And I was like, ha, I took it off. And she just says, hmm, and then closes the door. And I was like, that's it.
Oh,
I'm looking for this, like, oh my gosh, you cut your hair. That's so amazing. Like something.
right.
And she goes, and then walks away. And I'm like, okay, well, that's disappointing. So I stopped chasing the validation. And that's when it started to come. And what I mean by that is if you're chasing something, it's going to run from you.
Yeah.
If you're looking for something, you can't find it. But when you just relax and let things flow, that's when everything starts to flow. And so I just, I noticed that I was an extrovert that was conditioned to be an introvert. And extroversion doesn't work in the family I grew up in. Is like sit down somewhere, shut up. Kids are to only speak when spoken to. Kids should be seen and not heard. And it's all these things. Like my insides are like I want to connect and talk and play and be the center of attention and be on stage and just have fun with people. But everything that I was taught was that that was wrong. And so as I started to go and discover who I was, I started to notice that I effortlessly connect with people. And part of it is because of growing up abroad. Part of it is because of the deep need to want to be a part of something. But here's the caveat, because I moved so much in my early ages or early on in my life, even if I connect to a group of people, I can't stay too long. Like I've never belonged to one group. I can float between them. I can come in and be that professional ray of sunshine, light that place up and leave an example. But when it comes time to like identifying with this group and this is who we are and talking like them and being like them, it feels limiting. It feels like,
Gotcha.
okay, I've done enough here. What's next? Who's next? And so,
Wow.
um, I don't remember what the question was. I do that. I do that a lot.
That's okay. That's okay. Yeah, I think it really had to do with how do you feel like the change when you had after your baptism and you saw it and you had that change, if then somehow that has helped you or in with everything that you're doing now. It's like you are how you present yourself or how you or how you connect. I think even how you connect with other people. But your story is really just so amazing, and to me, it's unique. I grew up in this little bubble. I'll just be honest. I'm in this little bubble and everything and stuff. But it's wonderful because
Mm,
there again, I'm seeing just, again, just another glimpse of,
mm,
how diverse
mm.
that not just people are, but that diversity I just still believe comes from God because He's our creator. And,
Yeah.
we're all in His image and stuff. So no, that's great. Um, Now I know we've talked and I've heard, but you've guided several people through, into their purpose. We've talked
Yeah.
about that and how, you've helped them through that. But when was a time that you felt like you almost gave up, and what kept you, still standing? Why are you still standing? And you
It's
may
an
have alluded
excellent
to some of
question.
that anyway.
There are times daily, honestly, where I feel like giving up. It just feels like the more you accomplish, the more of an imposter you feel like. The more
Mhm.
that you accomplish and the more you do, the more people you help, the more you think, it's just a stroke of bad luck, or it wasn't me, it was God through me. And that's true. And there's also another side to it. So like post baptism, to bridge that gap there, um, after being baptized, I carried myself different. It's like everyone saw me make this commitment. And so now it wasn't really like I have to change who I am and how I am. It was I want to now.
Mhm.
And I'd never had that before. And so, um, one more time, this last question, because
So
I
the
can
last
bridge this
question.
gap.
No, that's fine. That's fine. So you've guided so many people into their purpose.
Oh,
You've
yes.
helped people, find their purpose. But when was that time when you felt like you almost gave up, and but what kept you, still standing? What kept you from, and you're still going now?
So I'm a musician. I've been a rapper and producer for about 30 years, and I I learned how powerful words can be when they're put to a melody, and you can evoke an emotion from someone with your music. And in your 20s you have your hormones raging, and so there's a lot of stuff you write that is selfish in nature and for one purpose. And when you realize that, there was a Bob Marley quote, um, the greatest cowardice is awakening the love of a woman with no intention to love her back. And there was a big struggle I had with lust and, um, the hormones that rage when you're in your 20s. And so a
Right.
lot of my music was geared towards, um, creating an emotion in women, and getting them to do what I wanted, or getting something out of it for myself, which that's pre-baptism. And then when I got baptized and I tried to write the same kind of music, or I tried to indulge in my old music or play it for other people, I started feeling convicted. I started feeling this dissonance. And I'm like, why can't I do this anymore? Like, why? And then it hit me. It was like I heard God's voice and he said, that's not what I want for you anymore. Like, that's the old you. That's gone.
Mhm.
And so I prayed. I said, God, take this gift away until I can use it for you. And I was not ready. He literally took it away. I couldn't write anything. Everything I tried to write um, that had Christian themes, or it just didn't feel right. It felt like the old clothes didn't fit, but the new ones didn't fit either.
Right.
And so the time I felt like giving up, it was the first time I experienced what surrender to win looks like. And so I started at the King's University because I was going to learn an instrument, because I always admired people that can play an instrument and sing at the same time. So I took guitar lessons at the King's University, and worship, it was worship leadership, but like they were teaching guitar and how to do worship. And in that, I got roped into the King's University as a student, and just seeing, like, it's hard to believe when you see people that actually live for God and like spend time with him, and have their daily devotion, and they speak to him first in everything, and they put him first in their life. Like, I'd never seen that. So it felt fake. It felt like this can't be real. You guys can't be this happy and joyous all the time. You guys can't be, really hearing from the Lord all the time. And then it happened. I heard from him and wrote a song, and ended up being like one of the closing acts for their talent show at the King's University. And I'm the kind of person that if my ego isn't kept in check, it will swell up to the size of the world, and I'll think the world revolves around me. Like, my name is Axis. And it it happened. I got a resentment because we had a second show and there was a different person coordinating, and she said we don't really do rap here, and I was like, well, you should check your files because I was the closing act last year, and it just it rubbed me the wrong way. And then my ego got in the way, and I lashed out at Gateway, and the um, lead pastor of the school met with me for lunch and basically begged me to take it down off my. I posted on social media, so I agreed to, but I was like, I'll leave the school because I just don't think it. There was a mix of things, and this is leading up to why I almost gave up. So at the King's University, they were teaching that sin is not what we do; it's who we are in relation to God. It's broken relationship. But when I went to the church to ask for help because I was struggling financially and I knew I'd been tithing and I just wanted to see what the church would offer, they asked me if I was married, and I told the truth. No, I'm not married. We just got engaged. I'd just done a flash mob proposal. We got engaged, and the lady was like, "Well, engagement's not in the Bible, so you're sinning. We can't help you because you're living in sin." And I said, "But aren't we all?" I, and she froze for a minute, and then I took it deeper. I said, "You teach that sin is broken relationship, like who we are in relation to God because of what Adam and Eve did. And there's no way for us to fix that. We have to we have to have a savior. Like we have to have that cover over us because we're so because the relationship is broken. But you're
Right.
telling me I'm living in sin, but it doesn't matter what I do. Even if I did everything right, I'd still be living in sin, right?" So it put a bad taste in my mouth. I couldn't go to the church anymore without like seeing the money aspect of it. Like everything is for show, it's all for money. She's like, "Well, I can offer you this marriage class for $100." I'm like, "I don't need a marriage class. We're planning the wedding now. I just told you I don't have the finances." And so that just made it put a bitter taste in my mouth for the church. That was around 2016, 17. And around that time, I started getting really successful in my corporate career, which was a complete accident. I just took a job as a barista supervisor inside of a tech company, and I told myself, "Keep your head down, work hard, don't don't talk to anybody." And the exact opposite happened. Um, the guy that was training me, he didn't know what the people in the building did. He didn't know people's names. He didn't care. There was no curiosity. It was just, I'm here to do a job and go home. And I'm like, how can you come into this cool building and see all of these cool things? These people have a game room, they have a tech center, they have a cafeteria, they have a Starbucks inside of their workplace. And I just my curiosity lit up, and I learned people's names, their drinks, their backup drinks, what they did, what that meant, and like I could not stop consuming information about these people and connecting, and went down as the legendary barista. And that got me hired into the company as a account manager, or sales for um, I don't remember like how to explain it. It was this thing called e-supply, and we would supply apartment complexes with like their sup- just all of their suppliers, and we'd make money on the back end. But it was sales, and I wasn't cut out for that because I didn't know that when you sit at a desk in a corporation, you only know the people around you. But everyone in the company knew me, so they'd all come by my desk, and that would annoy the people around me. And it started to just feel like my world was getting smaller, and I was dying. And when I got let go, I felt like, well, what am I going to do now? They doubled my income. I don't have a degree. I can't get back to this, and now our income relies on this. Like, what do I do? And for me, every time I feel like giving up, the reason I'm still standing is because I know I can't. Not only I can't because I have 5 kids and a family to support, I can't because the job isn't finished. I have to keep going, right? And there are people that look up to me, whether it's my family or people I've influenced or people's lives I've touched. There's people watching. And if no one was watching, God's still watching. And if Jesus
Mhm.
didn't give up, why should I? If I claim to be Christian, that's Christ like, I got to do it till death, right? I've got to complete what I was put here to do. And if I don't even lean into the uncomfortable, how am I ever going to complete my work? So I hope that explain. I mean, there's, like I said, multi-layered. There's so many stories. I can keep you here for hours, but
Uh,
just at a high level, I can't give up because God didn't give up on us.
no, no. And now as you're talking and just everything you've been saying, it's like, it's just in you. That's just how you're created. I think. I mean, that's part of it is you're just created to do to do what you're doing. And and it's just instilled in there, and you can't hide. I don't think you can
Yeah.
hide. You might can hide for a while. You may have hidden for a while or been hidden for a while, but ultimately, I think you just can't hide.
No.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
Uh, so I was just kind of looking here and seeing. So here's a question I'm going to ask, and we talked about this a little bit, maybe a little bit, but says so you talk about what if the IF impact and freedom.
Mm,
What would you say to someone listening right now who's scared to bet on themselves?
mm.
And I bet you see, well, I don't know, but I'd say there's a whole lot of people I can relate to being scared of betting on myself. So I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who are scared of betting on themselves.
Yeah, I can think of 10 right now, just off the top of my head. But what would I say to someone that's afraid to bet on themselves? And could tie it together beautifully with a nice little bow on top with what if? What if you did? What if the fear of doing the thing that you're afraid to do was exactly what you needed to do to succeed? What if you tried and it actually worked? What if you weren't afraid of success? What if you weren't afraid of failure? What if you were actually afraid of success? Right? What if the the thing that everyone wants, and I think it's instilled in all of us, is to have impact, or like make an impact beyond what we will see here, like leave an impact and a legacy that lasts longer than us, and freedom, because everyone wants, they think they want to travel, they think they want money, they think they want millions, and they think they want all these things. But really what that says, like, if you want a lot of money, it's not that you want a lot of money, because I've had a lot of money. It didn't solve my problems. What I wanted was freedom. I wanted freedom from having to decide whether I was going to buy food or gas. I wanted freedom from the stress that comes with, am I going to be able to make my bills this month? Right? The impact, like, I want not to be famous, but I want to know that my heart and what I do for others makes ripples in this world, and brings people to God. And like, there's a lot of people that they won't talk to someone else if they're not Christian, or they won't talk to them if they don't believe what they believe, or they don't do what they do, or they don't look like they look. And I just don't see that. I don't know if that's part of the way I was raised, how I was raised, and where I was raised, but I don't see color. I don't see, like, I think I've been conditioned to, like, say white, black, Mexican, Asian, like those stereotypes that we use here in the US, but I didn't know I was black until I moved here. So, what if you stopped dividing and comparing, and you started relating and connecting? What if you put yourself out there in full faith that you could be rejected, but you'd still be accepted at the same time? Like, you're afraid to show people your unfinished work. You're afraid to put yourself out there because vulnerability is scary, right? You want the validation. You want people to accept who you are. You're living with a scar from a teacher, a middle school bully, um, your parents when they were in a bad mood and told you to stop singing because they had a headache, or they weren't willing to suffer through the vocal cords growing, and now you'll never sing again, even though all that shower time and car time you've been practicing, you've been strengthening those vocals. So when you say a little riff and it sounds beautiful and someone says, "Wow, you have a beautiful voice." And you just act all coy, like, "No, no, 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 not me. I don't sing." You don't even realize it because it's baked into your subconscious now. You could sing your butt off, but because that one person hurt you and it's embedded in your subconscious, you'll never try again. Or, shut up with all that talking. You got all the bad reports on your report card and you got in trouble for talking to other people, and now you'll never talk to someone else. Or you're not a people person, or you don't like being on stage, or everyone's afraid of public speaking, and it's because we're conditioned to not speak. Don't talk in class, don't talk to your friends, don't talk to strangers. Communication is everything. And because we're being conditioned to not communicate, it makes it one of the hardest things to do. But it's in all the relationships I've been in, this marriage has been the best, and it's because we communicate. We communicate clearly. We over communicate. And I will say this to the person that's watching that wants to be set free from the fear. If anything scares you, and I mean anything, face it head on so that nothing stands in your way. Because what you're going to realize is fear is a mile wide and it's a mile high, but it's only paper thin. And once you bust through,
Good.
it's like muscle memory. Like, I don't know what paper this is, but I'm going to tear it. So it's in front of you. But if I'm, oh, that's so hard, right? Trying to bust through it. But, oh, wait. Now it's not there anymore. It's just the first time is the hardest time.
Yeah.
And you're afraid that someone's going to tell you that you're horrible or you suck or that was a stupid idea. And if that's the kind of person, if you run into that kind of person that would tell you something, you don't want them anyway. Like, you don't want their company. I don't want someone that's going to tear me down, but I may be attracted to them because that's what I'm used to,
Right.
or
Yeah.
because that's the story I'm telling myself.
Yeah.
Surround yourself with people that'll lift you up. You can build your own community. There's nothing telling you that you can't create your own circle of people to be around. And
Yeah.
I think that's why I don't belong to groups, is because if I'm doing something that makes the group feel insignificant or like they have to rise up and they don't want to do that work, then they'll pull me back down. And I just can't afford to go backwards. I can't afford to be stuck. There's too
Mhm.
much work to be done while I'm here. And being a part of something for too long makes it creates this group think. And so you may be in a group that's keeping you from rising above when you know you're called for more. Break out. I I don't want to cause division, but Jesus didn't come to bring everyone together. He came to divide. He said
Right.
it in the Bible. Like, I'm here to cause the division from everything, because we fall into traditions and we do it just because we've always done it. And
Right.
one of the most dangerous phrases in the English language is because we've always done it that way. Okay, we'll keep doing what's not working, but that's textbook definition of insanity. Doing the
Right.
same thing the same way, expecting a different result. And the
Yeah.
ultimate insanity is doing the same thing the same way, knowing you'll get the same result, but still hoping that it'll be different next time.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
what I would say.
That's
Hope that makes
awesome.
sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And talking about all of that, when and all the fears and everything, but Jesus addressed all of this. And when we go by his example, he stepped into this world and he went against the tradition. He stepped out and he did all the things because this is the Father's will. He knew he had a mission that
Mm-hmm.
God had given him, and he wasn't letting he wasn't going to stop either. He's like, no, I've got a mission, and he completed that mission. And where would we be had he not, where would we be had he not done that mission and he not completed? And we don't know the impact that we're leaving. We don't know what we're going to be leaving behind. And you know and I've even been thinking about that even more and more. It's like, I always had Sunday school, or it was a Bible study, And he's talking about when the time when the Israelites was going to go through the water, but God didn't part it first. They had to step into it.
Mm,
And I think it's like the priest had to go in first, or they had certain people who had to go in first. And it just, I just had this, it's like all of a sudden I could see them, and it's like you've got all these people behind them. And had they not gone first, all these people that are behind them are just waiting to come in and waiting to do. So, when we've
mm,
got to step up and be those leaders that God's calling us to be, and doing what he's calling us to do, and
mm,
knowing that, yeah, we're going to be ridiculed. There's going to be people. I mean, they ridiculed Jesus. They ended up killing him, but so it shouldn't really come as a surprise to us. But
mm,
like you said, we've been conditioned for so long into so many things that it's part of that breaking free. It's part of that even getting free in order to go and do and be. And to me, it's like, let's learn who we are. Let's be. We so much
mm,
focus is on the do, but when
mhm,
we learn to be, I believe that out of our being, when we really learn who we are and our true identity, of who God created us to be, the doing is going to come. Just like you said earlier, you can't be anybody but you. You kept
mhm.
pressing forwards to, it's like, but I got to break out of the shell. This is me.
Right. And when I'm trying to be anything else but myself, I'm failing.
Yeah.
I'm miserable. I'm trying. I'm having to prepare a script and can't veer from this script because what will people think of me? But
Yeah.
you said it, like the being is where everything flows from. And if I'm bold and courageous, right, as the Bible commands us to do almost in every chapter, truly I tell you, do not be afraid. Do
Yeah.
not be afraid. Be bold and courageous. Like if the Bible's telling us that all the time, that means it knows. God knows. Jesus knows. They know that there's going to be fear, right? There's going to be a sea that's not going to part until you stick your first foot or maybe submerge your whole body in the water,
Yeah.
right? Um,
Yeah.
be bold and courageous. Do all that you do with passion, the passion of Christ, the passion that is given to you, that fire that's inside of you that you keep trying to snuff out because it's weird or it's different, or you've been called to build an ark 40 years before it rains and you're trying to explain your calling to someone else that doesn't understand. It's not
Yeah.
for them to understand. We bring this back full circle.
Yeah.
Trying to put kingdom things in human containers that they
Yeah.
don't fit in. It is not your job to explain why you were called to do what you were do or why you were called to do what you can only do. It's your job to do it, right?
Yeah.
To yield to the king as your sovereign king over your life so that he can make you king over your assignment that you yield to. And when you're yielded, that passion lights up and it engulfs you. And then you can be that light that's on a hill that shouldn't be hidden, right?
Right.
And you will have the life that you were meant to have. You will have a life that you love. Be, do, have, right? Not the other
Yep.
way around. You don't have to have something like a degree or a certification or a qualification or some kind of validation in order to do something so that you can be someone. That's how we've been programmed. If you take
Yep.
everything in the world and you flip it on its head, that's the kingdom.
There you go. Yeah. Perfect. Wow. I like this is a good way to wrap this up because you're right. We've got everything is upside down, and it's time to turn it right side up.
Amen.
Time to turn it
Amen.
right side up. Thank you for joining me today and for joining and speaking to our audience. And I know that they're going to get a blessing. I know, and out of it, I've gotten a blessing. Just me personally, and everything. I've enjoyed hearing, about your journey and about what you're doing, and just about being you, being who God created you to be, and stuff. So, any final words? I always leave with a verse at the end. But any final words from you before we wrap up?
Yes. I I just want to thank you for the opportunity to speak to your audience and I just love questions. Um so thank you for asking excellent questions. But I do want to kind of leave with this little gem. So let me I want to read it verbatim but it's
Yep.
Jeremiah 1:17 through 19.
Okay.
My daughter had a wreck a couple months ago, and she we didn't know how we were going to get her another car. Like we were in no position to get another car, but something told me to reassure her that we're going to get her another car and it's going to be fine. Because she had just started school, and you know that the first thing that meets you when you get intentional about something is disruption. And when I reassured her and walked out of her room, I heard Jeremiah 1:17. And I was like, it has been so long since I've heard a verse. I better go look this up.
Okay.
And so I have been stalling on getting out there in the world and doing what I've been called to do. And this is what the verse said, and this is bone chilling. But this is what I want to leave y'all with.
Okay.
Get yourself ready. Stand up and say to them whatever I command you. Do not be terrified by them, or I will terrify you before them. Today I have made you a fortified city, an iron pillar, and a bronze wall to stand against the whole land, against the kings of Judah, its officials, its priests, and the people of the land. They will fight against you, but will not overcome you. For I am with you, and I will rescue you, declares the Lord.
Wow.
When I say I stopped preparing speeches, I stopped getting things ready before I got out there and spoke, and I just started speaking with exactly what God put on my heart, that's when things started to change.
Wow. That's good. That's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. That
Thank you,
is
Violet.
awesome. All right. Thank you all for joining us. And the way I always still like to end, although that's a very good verse right there, but I like to remind us and of the promise that is in Isaiah 43:2 of when you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And through the
Mm,
rivers, they shall not overflow you. When you
mm,
walk through the fire, you shall not be burned, nor shall the flames scorch you. So we know that we will go through things, but he has promises for us. And so if this episode has been encouraging to you, please like and subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, and share this with a friend. And as I mentioned before, if you're feeling stuck or confused in your walk in any way, then schedule a free call with me because we want to get you unstuck. And it's not God's will for you to walk in confusion. So have a great day.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you.